The 400-pound irrigation coil scraped against concrete as Nolan Drexler dragged it through the gap in his back fence at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Sweat dripped from his forehead despite the October chill, and his work boots struggled for grip on the wet grass. He'd been planning this drainage fix for weeks, but tonight felt different. Wrong. Like someone was watching. The coil caught on a fence post. Nolan yanked harder, and his wrench slipped from his belt, clanging against something buried in the dirt. He knelt, brushing away soil with his fingers, expecting to find a sprinkler head or old cable line. Instead, his thumb touched smooth plastic, a USB drive, small, black, with a cracked case. Nolan glanced toward his neighbor's house. Brad Godwin's kitchen light was still on, casting yellow squares across the shared fence line. The fire inspector worked late shifts, but this felt intentional, like surveillance. The USB drive felt warm in Nolan's palm. He pocketed it and finished dragging the coil to his storage shed, mind racing. His 13-year-old daughter Rachel had been acting strange lately, avoiding eye contact, spending more time in her room. Maybe she'd buried some school project or diary backup. Inside his garage workshop, Nolan powered up his laptop and inserted the drive. The screen flickered, loading a single video file dated 3 months ago. His cursor hovered over the play button. The footage began with familiar angles. His own garage, his workbench, his tools hanging on pegboard. But the timestamp showed 2:15 p.m. on a Thursday when he'd been installing drainage pipes across town. Two figures entered the frame. His wife Corinne, wearing the blue dress she'd claimed was for grocery shopping, and Brad Godwin, still in his fire department uniform, hands already reaching for her waist. Nolan's throat went dry. He watched them move to his workbench, shoving aside his irrigation catalogs. Their voices were clear through his security microphone. "He's so freaking boring," Corinne laughed, unbuttoning her dress. "Talks about pipe diameter like it's poetry." Brad's response made Nolan's hands shake. "We should just take the house. Divorce him clean. I know a guy at the county who handles property transfers." The video continued for 18 minutes. Nolan watched every second, his marriage dissolving in high definition. When it ended, he sat in darkness, garage door closed, processing what he'd seen. His phone buzzed. Text from Corinne. "Working late at utilities office. Don't wait up." It was Thursday night, same day of the week as the video. Nolan powered down the laptop and walked to his kitchen window. Brad's house was dark now, but his fire department Tahoe sat in the driveway. The man was home. Sleep didn't come. Nolan lay beside his wife, listening to her breathe, studying the ceiling. By dawn, he'd made his decision. This wouldn't end with lawyers and mediation, it would end with systematic destruction. Friday morning, Nolan kissed Corinne goodbye like nothing had changed. She tasted like mint toothpaste and lies. "Have a good day, honey," she said, adjusting his work shirt collar. "Don't work too hard." "Never do," he replied, meaning it differently now. At his irrigation consulting office, Nolan pulled property records for his entire neighborhood. His engineering software could map underground utilities, but it also tracked property ownership, easements, and legal boundaries. He started with Brad's house. The fire inspector had purchased 412 Maple Street 18 months ago, but the deed showed irregularities. A garage lease addendum, signed by Corinne, giving Brad storage rights to Nolan's own garage for $200 monthly. Corinne's signature looked authentic, but Nolan had never agreed to lease his garage to anyone. His phone rang. Ethan Vale, his neighbor 2 houses down. "You busy tonight?" Ethan asked. The ex-electrician kept his words short, military habit from Afghanistan. "Depends. Saw some activity at your place yesterday, while you were working." Nolan gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of activity?" "The kind that pisses off husbands." Silence stretched between them. Ethan had seen Brad's visits. Maybe others had too. "Want to grab beers?" Ethan asked. "My garage." 7 o'clock. That evening, Ethan arrived carrying a six-pack and wearing his usual stone expression. They sat on Nolan's workbench, the same spot where his wife had betrayed him months earlier. "How long have you known?" Nolan asked. 6 weeks. Maybe longer. Ethan opened 2 bottles. Wasn't sure how to bring it up. "What exactly did you see?" "Fire department vehicle. Afternoons when you're on job sites. Sometimes mornings." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Your wife answers the door in a robe." Nolan showed him the USB video on his laptop. Ethan watched without expression, then closed the screen. "You planning something stupid?" Ethan asked. "I'm planning something smart." "Good. Because stupid gets you arrested. Smart gets you even." They finished their beers in silence. When Ethan left, he paused at the garage door. You need backup. You call me. Saturday morning, Nolan suggested a neighborhood barbecue. Corinne seemed surprised but pleased. That's wonderful, honey. It's been too long since we entertained. I'll invite Brad since he's been so helpful with the fire safety inspection. Corinne's smile flickered. Fire safety inspection? For the garage lease, insurance purposes. Her face went pale. Oh, right. That. Nolan spent the afternoon preparing. Hamburgers, hot dogs, potato salad. Normal suburban fare for an abnormal plan. He set up folding tables in his backyard, strung lights between trees, and placed a small audio recorder under the patio table. Guests arrived at 6. Diana Hartley from the Neighborhood Watch brought homemade cookies and gossip. The Petersons from across the street showed up with their twin boys. Ethan came last, carrying beer and positioning himself near the fence line. Brad arrived fashionably late, wearing civilian clothes but moving with his usual authority. He shook hands with the men, complimented the women, and helped himself to the grill. Nolan, this setup looks great, Brad said, flipping burgers. You always were handy with tools. Speaking of tools, Nolan replied, opening his 4th beer, I've been thinking about expanding the garage. Maybe adding electrical outlets. Electrical work needs permits, Brad said carefully. Of course. Wouldn't want any violations. Nolan's voice carried an edge. Fire department takes that seriously. The conversation continued over dinner. Nolan played the slightly drunk host, asking probing questions about garage modifications, property improvements, and utility access. Brad answered smoothly, but his eyes kept finding Corinne across the yard. As guests cleaned up, Rachel approached her father. His daughter had been quiet all evening, observing adult conversations with unusual intensity. Dad, she whispered, pressing a folded paper into his hand. I drew you something. Nolan unfolded the paper. It was a hand-drawn map of their backyard showing the garage, fence line, and neighbor's property. But Rachel had added details. Stick figures moving between houses, times written in careful cursive, and a note at the bottom. I saw Mommy there again. Thursday after school. His daughter's eyes were serious. Older than 13. She knew something was wrong in their house, even if she couldn't name it. Thank you, sweetheart, Nolan said, folding the map. This helps a lot. The barbecue ended at 10. Guests thanked them and departed, leaving dirty plates and the smell of charcoal. Corinne went inside to shower, claiming exhaustion. Brad lingered, helping clean up with suspicious enthusiasm. Great party, Brad said, loading chairs into the garage. We should do this more often. Absolutely, Nolan agreed. Nothing like good neighbors. They worked in silence, stacking tables and folding equipment. Brad moved with familiarity around Nolan's garage, knowing where tools belonged and which outlets worked. The intimacy of someone who'd spent significant time in the space. Well, Brad said finally, I should head home. Actually, Nolan said, I wanted to ask you something about the garage lease. Brad froze. Garage lease? The $200 monthly for storage space. Nolan's voice stayed level. My wife signed the agreement, but I never saw the paperwork. Oh, that? Brad's laugh sounded forced. Just some equipment storage, fire department stuff, nothing major. Right. Where exactly do you store it? Brad gestured vaguely toward the back corner. Over there, behind your irrigation supplies. Nolan walked to the corner Brad indicated. Empty space, no fire department equipment, no storage boxes. Nothing but dust and spider webs. Funny, Nolan said. I don't see anything. Must have moved it, you know how it is. The lie hung between them like smoke. Nolan turned to face Brad directly. You know what I think? What's that? I think you've been storing something else in my garage. Brad's friendly mask slipped. His fire inspector authority surfaced, voice hardening. I think you've had too much to drink, Nolan. Maybe, but drunk men sometimes see clearly. Careful, Brad warned. Accusations can cause problems. Neighborhood problems? Is that a threat? It's friendly advice, from someone who understands how fires start. The menace was subtle but real. Brad Godwin was done pretending to be neighborly. His true nature showed through. Controlling, aggressive, dangerous. Nolan smiled. Good to know where we stand. Brad left without another word. Nolan watched him walk across the yard, climb the fence, and disappear into his own house. Then he retrieved the audio recorder from under the patio table. Sunday morning brought rain. Heavy drops pounded the roof as Nolan sat in his home office, reviewing property records and legal documents. The garage lease was definitely forged. Corinne's signature, but notarized by someone named Kip Lawson, a real estate agent who specialized in commercial properties. Nolan called Lawson's office. "Hello, this is Nolan Drexler. I have questions about a garage lease my wife signed." "Oh, Mr. Drexler. Yes, she mentioned you might call. The lease modification, right?" "Modification. Converting your residential garage to commercial storage, mister. Godwin explained the fire department needs overflow space for equipment." Nolan's grip tightened on the phone. "When did my wife sign this modification?" "Last month, September 15th. She seemed eager to help the fire department." September 15th, the day Nolan had been installing drainage systems in Tyler, 40 miles away. Corinne had taken a sick day from her utilities office job. "Can you email me a copy of all documents?" "Of course. Your wife said you want copies for insurance purposes." The documents arrived within an hour. Corinne's signature on 3 separate forms: lease agreement, commercial modification, and liability waiver. But her handwriting looked different on each document. Rushed, nervous, like someone had coached her on what to sign. Nolan printed everything and drove to Ethan's house. His friend answered the door in work clothes covered in sawdust. "Building shelves," Ethan explained, leading him to a cluttered workshop. Nolan spread the documents across Ethan's workbench. "Look at these signatures." Ethan studied the papers with military precision. "Different pens, different pressure. She signed these at different times. Or different places." "You thinking coercion?" "I'm thinking fraud." Ethan set down his coffee. "What's your plan?" "Legal destruction, but I need evidence they can't dispute." "I know a guy," Ethan said. "Private investigator, old school, works with cameras, not computers." "Trustworthy?" "Jasper Bowen, 70 years old, been doing this since Nixon. If there's dirt, he'll find it." They called Jasper from Ethan's landline. The old man agreed to meet at a diner on Highway 155, 30 minutes away. Jasper Bowen looked like a retired insurance adjuster. Gray suit, thick glasses, manila folders under his arm. He ordered black coffee and listened to Nolan's story without interruption. "You want surveillance or evidence?" Jasper asked. "Both. Surveillance is easy. Evidence costs more." "How much more?" "Depends on what we find. But cheating spouses usually leave trails. Bank records, phone bills, credit cards. People think they're sneaky, but they're just sloppy." Jasper slid a contract across the table. 3 days minimum. Cash up front. Nolan signed and paid $500. Jasper pocketed the money and shook hands. "I'll start tomorrow. Don't change your routine. Act normal. Let them get comfortable." Monday morning, Nolan left for work as usual. He had 3 irrigation consultations scheduled in Marshall, giving him perfect cover for being away from home. Jasper would photograph everything. The first job site was a residential subdivision with drainage problems. Nolan spent 2 hours mapping underground utilities, but his mind stayed focused on home. What was Corinne doing? Was Brad visiting? Were they planning something new? His phone buzzed at 11. Text from Corinne. "Taking lunch break early. Groceries after work." Standard message. But now Nolan wondered, was she really buying groceries or meeting Brad somewhere else? The second job site was a commercial property with failing sprinkler systems. Nolan inspected pipes and pressure gauges, documenting problems for repair estimates. Routine work that usually satisfied him. Today it felt like distraction from more important business. At 3 o'clock, Jasper called. "Got some interesting photos," the investigator said. "Your wife had company today." "Brad?" "Fire department vehicle. Stayed 2 hours. My garage," among other places. Nolan finished his final consultation and drove home. Corinne's car was in the driveway, groceries visible through her back window. She'd actually bought food, but that didn't mean she hadn't done other things first. "How was your day?" she asked, unloading milk and bread. "Productive. Marshall subdivision has major drainage issues." "Sounds complicated." "Everything's complicated until you understand how the pieces fit together." Corinne paused, holding a box of cereal. "What do you mean?" "Water always finds the path of least resistance. But if you map the flow correctly, you can redirect it anywhere you want." She stared at him for a moment, then resumed unpacking groceries. But her movements seemed more careful. Deliberate, like someone who suspected they were being watched. That evening, Nolan helped Rachel with algebra homework while Corinne cleaned the kitchen. Normal family routine, but everything felt performance now. Scripted domesticity covering deeper deception. "Dad," Rachel said, erasing a wrong answer. "Why do people lie about math?" "What do you mean?" "In story problems. Like, if a train leaves Chicago at 60 miles per hour, why not just say the real numbers?" Nolan considered the question. Maybe because real numbers are harder to control. But lies always get caught eventually. Usually. Smart people leave evidence trails. Rachel nodded thoughtfully and returned to her homework. His daughter was learning life lessons through algebra, truth versus deception, evidence versus assumption, the mathematics of human behavior. Tuesday morning brought Jasper's full report. The private investigator met Nolan at a truck stop diner, spreading photographs across a corner booth. "Your wife and the fire inspector have a routine," Jasper said. "Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He arrives at noon, leaves at 2:30. The photos were explicit. Brad's Tahoe in Nolan's driveway, Corinne answering the door in casual clothes, both entering the garage together. Timestamps proved the schedule. "There's more," Jasper continued, producing bank statements. "Your wife opened a separate checking account last month. Deposits from someone named Kip Lawson, the real estate agent." Nolan studied the bank records. $2,000 monthly for 6 months. "That's $12,000 total," Jasper noted. "Significant money for garage rental." But Nolan understood the real transaction. Corinne wasn't just cheating, she was profiting. Brad was paying her for access to the garage, using the fire department connection to legitimize illegal commercial use of residential property. "What about Brad's finances?" Nolan asked. "Interesting question." Jasper pulled out another folder. "Fire inspector salary is $58,000 annually, but he's been spending like someone making twice that amount." The photos showed Brad's recent purchases: new fishing boat, upgraded truck, expensive electronics. None of it affordable on a municipal employee's salary. "Where's the extra money coming from?" "That's where it gets complicated," Jasper said. "Fire inspectors have significant authority over commercial properties. They can delay permits, require expensive modifications, even condemn buildings." The implication was clear. Brad was taking bribes from businesses, using his fire department position to extort money. The garage rental from Corinne was just one income stream. "You've got him on corruption charges," Jasper said. "Federal level stuff. This goes way beyond adultery." Nolan gathered the photographs and documents. "What's my next move?" "Depends on what you want. Divorce, criminal prosecution, public humiliation." "All three." "Then you need a lawyer. Someone who understands federal corruption cases." Jasper recommended Meredith Quinn, a prosecutor-turned-defense attorney who specialized in municipal corruption. She had a reputation for aggressive tactics and courtroom victories. Nolan called Quinn's office and scheduled an appointment for Thursday morning. Then he drove home to maintain his normal routine. Corinne was cooking dinner when he arrived. Pork chops, mashed potatoes, green beans. Comfort food that used to feel like love. Now it tasted like guilt. "Good day?" she asked, setting plates on the table. "Getting better?" After dinner, Nolan retreated to his garage workshop. He powered up his laptop and reviewed Jasper's evidence again. Bank records, photographs, timestamps, a comprehensive case for adultery and fraud. But he wanted more than legal victory. He wanted emotional destruction, the kind of revenge that left permanent scars. His phone buzzed. Text from Brad. "Need to talk. Back alley. 10 minutes. Nolan smiled. The fire inspector was getting nervous. The back alley ran behind both their properties, separated from the street by a chain-link fence. Nolan arrived first, standing in shadows between streetlights. Rain had returned, turning dirt to mud. Brad appeared from the opposite direction, wearing a fire department jacket and carrying a flashlight. His usual confidence seemed forced. "We have a problem," Brad said without preamble. "We? Don't play stupid, Nolan. I know you've been digging around. Just being thorough. Engineering habit. This needs to stop, before people get hurt." "Are you threatening me?" Brad stepped closer, flashlight beam aimed at Nolan's face. "I'm giving you friendly advice. Some things are better left buried." "Like USB drives?" The flashlight wavered. Brad's breathing changed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. High-definition video. Great audio quality. Your tax dollars at work." Brad's mask finally dropped completely. The neighborly fire inspector vanished, replaced by someone dangerous. "You recorded us? I didn't have to. You used my own security system." "That's illegal surveillance? Of my own property? I don't think so." Brad lunged forward, swinging the flashlight like a club. Nolan dodged left, but the heavy maglite caught his shoulder, sending him stumbling into the fence. "You stupid heck!" Brad snarled, advancing with the flashlight raised. "You have no idea what you're messing with." Nolan grabbed a section of loose chain link and pulled himself upright. His shoulder throbbed. but adrenaline sharpened his focus. "Enlighten me," he said. Brad swung again. This time Nolan was ready. He caught Brad's wrist and twisted, forcing the flashlight from his grip. It hit the ground and went dark. They grappled in near darkness, feet sliding in mud. Brad was bigger and stronger, but Nolan had spent years doing physical labor. His hands were calloused from tools, his grip solid. Brad threw a punch that caught Nolan in the ribs. Pain exploded through his torso, but he held on, using Brad's momentum to spin him toward the fence. Metal rattled as Brad's back hit the chain link. "This is over," Brad gasped. "Your marriage, your neighborhood, everything." "You're right," Nolan agreed, then drove his knee into Brad's stomach. Brad doubled over, retching. Nolan stepped back, letting him fall face first into the mud. "But not how you think." He retrieved the flashlight and walked away, leaving Brad groaning in the alley. The fight had been brief but decisive. More importantly, it had revealed Brad's true nature. No more pretense of authority or neighborly charm. Just a corrupt official who used violence when exposed. Back in his garage, Nolan documented his injuries with photographs. Bruised shoulder, scraped knuckles, torn shirt, evidence of assault, with the back alley security camera as witness. His phone rang. "Ethan." "Heard some commotion," his friend said. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay." "Need backup?" "Not tonight, but soon." Thursday morning, Nolan met Meredith Quinn at her downtown office. The attorney was exactly as Jasper described. Professional, direct, no patience for emotional drama. "Show me what you have," she said. Nolan spread evidence across her conference table. Video footage, bank records, property documents, photographs of injuries from the alley fight. Quinn studied everything with prosecutor's eyes, taking notes on a legal pad. "This is good," she said finally. "Municipal corruption, adultery, assault, fraud, multiple felony charges. What about divorce proceedings? Texas is a community property state, but adultery changes everything, especially when it involves financial fraud." Quinn explained the legal strategy. First, file criminal complaints against Brad for corruption and assault. Second, initiate divorce proceedings with evidence of adultery and financial deception. Third, pursue civil remedies for property damage and emotional distress. "This will destroy both their lives," Quinn warned. "Are you prepared for that level of warfare?" "They destroyed mine first." "Fair enough. Let's file papers." The legal process moved quickly. By Friday afternoon, criminal complaints were filed with the county district attorney. Divorce papers were served to Corinne at her utilities office job. Asset freezing orders were issued for all jointly held accounts. Corinne came home that evening carrying legal documents and wearing the expression of someone whose world had collapsed. "We need to talk," she said, dropping papers on the kitchen table. "Nothing to discuss." "Nolan, please, this is crazy. We can work through this." "Work through what? The adultery or the fraud?" Corinne's facade cracked. Tears started flowing, but they seemed calculated rather than genuine. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she sobbed. "Brad said it would be simple, just a storage arrangement. For $12,000. We needed money." "Your business has been slow." "My business is fine. Your greed was the problem." Corinne collapsed into a chair, sobbing harder. "What about Rachel? What about our family?" "You should have considered that before cheating with the fire inspector in my garage." The crude language hit her like a physical blow. Nolan had never spoken to her that way before, but everything had changed now. "I want you out of the house," he continued. "Tonight. This is my home too. Not according to the asset freeze. Check the legal papers." Corinne read through the documents with growing panic. Joint accounts frozen, property access restricted, car registration questioned. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Try Brad's place, if he's not in jail yet." That was cruel, but accurate. The district attorney had moved fast on the corruption charges. Brad Godwin was facing federal investigation for bribery, fraud, and abuse of office. Corinne left that night with 2 suitcases and a broken spirit. Rachel watched from her bedroom window as her mother loaded clothes into the car. "Is Mom coming back?" Rachel asked. "I don't think so, sweetheart." "Good," his daughter said quietly. "She made you sad." The divorce proceedings lasted 6 weeks. Quinn was ruthless in court, presenting evidence of adultery, fraud, and conspiracy. Corinne's attorney tried to argue emotional distress and financial dependency, but the video footage destroyed any sympathy. Judge Patricia Redford had a reputation for harsh sentences and moral clarity. She reviewed the evidence with obvious disgust. "Mrs. Drexler," the judge said, "you engaged in adultery, committed fraud, and conspired to steal from your husband. This court finds no grounds for spousal support or property division. Corinne received nothing. No money, no car, no claim to the house. The prenuptial agreement she'd signed years earlier protected Nolan's business assets, and her adultery voided any claim to community property. Brad's situation was worse. Federal investigators found evidence of widespread corruption involving multiple businesses and thousands of dollars in bribes. He was arrested, fired from the fire department, and evicted from his rental house. The corruption scandal made local news. Diana Hartley from the Neighborhood Watch gave interviews about suspicious activity she'd witnessed. Property values in the area actually increased after Brad's removal. December brought the final confrontation. Nolan was working in his garage when Corinne appeared at the door. She looked thinner, older, wearing clothes that didn't fit properly. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Court orders say otherwise." "This isn't about legal stuff, it's about closure." Nolan set down his tools and faced her directly. "You have 5 minutes. I want you to know I'm sorry." "For which part? The adultery, the fraud, or getting caught?" "All of it. Everything. I made terrible choices." "You made calculated decisions. There's a difference." Corinne's composure cracked again. "You planned this whole thing, didn't you? The barbecue, the investigation, everything. I responded to your actions. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life. I just documented it." She stared at him with a mixture of hatred and desperation. The woman he'd married 20 years earlier was gone, replaced by someone bitter and broken. "What about forgiveness?" she asked. "What about second chances? What about $12,000? What about video footage? What about 18 months of lies?" Each question hit her like a physical blow. She had no answers because there were no good answers. "I loved you once," she said finally. "No," Nolan replied. "You loved the idea of me. The steady income, the suburban house, the respectable husband. You never loved me." "That's not true." "If it wasn't true, you wouldn't have cheated with another man in my garage." The crude language silenced her. They stood in the garage where her affair had played out, surrounded by tools and equipment that represented his honest work. "Where's Brad now?" Nolan asked. "County jail, awaiting trial." "Good, you can visit him there." "I don't want Brad. I want my life back." "Your life back? You mean the life where you commit fraud and adultery without consequences?" Corinne had no response. She'd gambled everything on a scheme that required Nolan to remain ignorant and passive. When he'd proven neither, her entire plan collapsed. "I have to go," she said finally. "Yes, you do." She turned to leave, then paused at the garage door. "Will you tell Rachel that I love her?" "Rachel will make her own decisions about you when she's older. She's my daughter, too. Biology doesn't equal parenting. You abandoned her when you chose adultery over family." Corinne left without another word. Nolan watched her walk to a battered Honda Civic, clearly a recent purchase from a used car lot. Her fall from suburban comfort to working poverty was complete. Spring brought new possibilities. Nolan's irrigation consulting business expanded into commercial properties, contracts that Brad's corruption had previously blocked. Rachel thrived in school, her grades improving without the tension of a broken marriage. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, like bad air had been cleared out and replaced with something honest. One evening in April, Ethan stopped by with beer and updates. "Heard about Brad's sentencing," he said. "How long?" 7 years federal prison, plus restitution to the businesses he extorted." "What about Corinne?" "Working at a grocery store in Tyler. Lives in a studio apartment behind the Dairy Queen." They sat in Nolan's garage, drinking beer and watching the sun set through the open door. The space where his marriage had died now felt like somewhere new could begin. "Any regrets?" Ethan asked. Nolan considered the question. His wife was gone, his marriage destroyed, his daughter growing up in a broken home. But the alternative had been living with lies, watching his property get stolen, and raising Rachel in an atmosphere of deception. "No," he said finally. "I regret trusting her in the first place, but I don't regret ending it. You did what needed doing. I did what they forced me to do." The distinction mattered. Nolan hadn't initiated the conflict. He'd simply refused to be a victim when the conflict came to him. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel, who was spending the evening at a friend's house. "Coming home soon. Love you, Dad." 3 words that meant everything. His daughter still loved him, still trusted him, still wanted to come home. That night, Nolan sat in his home office reviewing financial statements. The divorce had cost him legal fees and investigation expenses, but his business was stronger than ever. Property damage from the affair was covered by insurance. The garage had been thoroughly cleaned and reorganized. He opened his laptop and deleted the video file that had started everything. The evidence was no longer needed, and some things were better forgotten than preserved. Outside, April rain began falling on suburban lawns and garden fences. The irrigation systems he'd designed and installed were working perfectly, directing water where it belonged and preventing flood damage. Water always finds the path of least resistance, but engineered systems can redirect the flow. The same principle applied to human behavior. When people chose paths of deception and betrayal, consequences followed with engineering precision. Nolan closed his laptop and walked to the kitchen for a glass of water. Tomorrow he would pick up Rachel from school, help with homework, and make dinner for 2 instead of 3. A smaller family, but an honest one. The suburban house felt solid around him. Foundations stable, utilities functioning, security systems operational. Everything exactly as it should be in a home built on truth instead of lies. He looked out the kitchen window toward Brad's former house. New tenants had moved in last month. A retired couple with grandchildren who visited on weekends. The kind of neighbors who waved hello and minded their own business. Perfect. Nolan finished his water and headed upstairs to bed. Tomorrow would bring new irrigation projects, school conferences with Rachel's teachers, and the simple satisfactions of honest work and honest relationships. He'd won more than a divorce case or corruption prosecution. He'd won his life back from people who'd tried to steal it through deception and fraud. In the end, that was victory enough.